they've done it again. The Simpsons. For over 3 decades, this harmless cartoon has been dropping jokes that somehow keep turning into reality. At first it was coincidence, then it became creepy, and now their predictions for 2026 feel less like satire and more like a warning. From throwaway gags that mirrored government surveillance, to scenes that foreshadowed world scandals and scientific breakthroughs, The Simpsons hasn't just entertained us. It's documented the future before it even happened. Some of these predictions will make you laugh. Some will send chills down your spine. But one, the final one, might just leave you questioning how a cartoon keeps getting it right. So sit back, because what you're about to see isn't just pop culture. It's prophecy disguised as comedy. When fiction foreshadows reality, uncanny predictions by The Simpsons. For over 3 decades, The Simpsons has entertained audiences with its blend of relatable family dynamics, sharp wit, and satirical commentary on modern life. Yet, beyond its comedic genius, the show has earned a unique reputation for its seemingly prophetic ability to mirror future events, sometimes years or even decades in advance. What initially began as absurd gags or pointed social critiques has, on numerous occasions, chillingly transformed into real-world phenomena. This exploration delves into several instances where The Simpsons transitioned from mere animation to an unexpected oracle, highlighting the often disturbing accuracy of its fictional narratives. Laugh line turned into surveillance shock in July 2007. The Simpsons movie offered a particularly prescient moment. As the Simpsons fled Springfield under government quarantine, Marge attempted to reassure a worried Lisa with the line, "It's not like the government is listening to everybody's conversations." The film then immediately cut to a massive, clandestine surveillance facility, where a vast network of agents was shown actively eavesdropping on phone calls, including Marge's. At the time, this scene was widely interpreted as an over-the-top, cartoonish jab at burgeoning public concerns about privacy and potential government overreach, an exaggeration designed for comedic effect. However, fiction collided with reality a mere 6 years later in 2013. Edward Snowden, a former contractor for the National Security Agency (NSA), leaked a trove of highly classified documents. These revelations provided irrefutable proof of vast, previously undisclosed surveillance programs conducted by the U.S. government. The documents detailed the collection of immense quantities of people's phone metadata, internet communications, and other private data, affecting millions of individuals globally. The sheer enormity of this surveillance operation shocked audiences worldwide and ignited fierce debates about privacy, national security, and civil liberties. What had once seemed like an impossible joke in The Simpsons movie suddenly felt disturbingly true, transforming a satirical laugh line into a chilling premonition. The media quickly resurfaced the movie clip, throwing it into the Snowden-inspired revelation spot as yet another instance of The Simpsons' uncanny ability to predict real-world events. While the writers likely intended to parody public paranoia about government spying, the scene inadvertently illustrated a future reality, mass surveillance not as science fiction, but as something quietly ongoing years before it dawned upon the populace. Just as the cartoon cheekily implied, when Homer's dive echoed tragedy in January 2006, The Simpsons episode, Homer's Paternity Coot, a season 17, episode 10 aired. The story followed Homer as he embarked on a quest to discover his biological father, leading him to Mason Fairbanks, a treasure hunter. In an effort to bond, Homer joined Mason on an undersea expedition to locate the wreck of the fabled treasure ship Piso Mojado. The adventure took a dark turn when Homer, piloting a small, one-person submarine, became trapped in coral. His communications were cut off, and his oxygen supply dwindled to dangerously low levels. He narrowly escaped death, being rescued at the last possible moment. At the time, the scene was a dramatic yet comedic parody of Homer's characteristic reckless misadventures. 17 years later, in June 2023, an eerie parallel emerged with the real-world tragedy of the OceanGate Titan submersible. A private submersible, carrying 5 adventurous tourists on an expedition to view the wreck of the Titanic, went missing shortly after submersion. Despite international search efforts, no trace was found until it was confirmed that the sub had imploded under immense pressure at great depths, instantly killing all on board. These events garnered global media coverage and sparked intense questions about the safety of experimental submersibles. Fans of The Simpsons were quick to draw connections. Homer's fictional dive, with its small sub, loss of communication, and life-or-death struggle at great depths mirrored the real-life catastrophe. The uncanny resemblance was further accentuated by the discovery that a writer for the show had reportedly taken dives with the Titan years prior to its tragic failure. Though the episode was not a direct prediction, the striking similarities underscored the actual dangers of pushing technological limits in extreme environments. What began as a comical experience in 2006 later became an eerily mimicked tragedy in 2023. When lunch jokes became reality in 1994, The Simpsons episode, Sweet Seymour Skinner's Bodice's Song, April 28, featured a brief but memorable gag. In the school cafeteria, a food barrel was labeled, "Assorted horse parts now with more testicles." This was purely dark humor, a cartoonish exaggeration of the often dismal quality of public school meals. The writers likely intended it for a quick laugh, without any deeper resonance. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2013, the infamous horse meat scandal erupted across Europe. Tests revealed that meat sold as beef in the UK, Ireland, and France was contaminated, with some batches containing little or no beef, but instead horse DNA. This discovery triggered a massive public outcry. Consumers felt betrayed, supermarket shelves were cleared, brands issued apologies, and governments launched investigations to restore trust in the food supply chain. Suddenly, a seemingly absurd joke from The Simpsons felt creepily prophetic. While The Simpsons certainly didn't cause or explicitly predict the scandal, the resemblance was undeniably uncanny. In the popular imagination, cartoon fiction and real life had now collided. Humor that had once masked a bitter critique of institutional food transformed into a haunting specter, suggesting that what seemed absurdly exaggerated might, in fact, reflect real danger. The joke became fodder for media commentaries, with many noting how the show seemed to anticipate the contamination crisis years before it made headline news. This phenomenon of horse meat in school lunches holds further meaning. It suggests how biting satire can touch upon uncomfortable truths at moments when regulatory failure, cost pressure, and supply chain complexity converge. The agile reflection on food safety, regulation, and consumer assurance in the context of The Simpsons joke boils down to a cautionary tale in the history of the modern food supply, something far beyond mere bragging rights for the show's predictive powers. 3 eyes, 1 nuclear warning. In 1990, The Simpsons aired 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish. A November Went, an episode that satirized pollution and corporate negligence. Bart, while fishing near Springfield's nuclear power plant, caught a strange orange fish with 3 eyes. This mutated creature, quickly named Blinky, horrified the town and became a potent symbol of industrial pollution poisoning the environment. At the time, the scene was a clear, over-the-top critique of corporate irresponsibility, with radiation from the power plant literally deforming wildlife. To viewers, it was an environmental allegory wrapped in absurd comedy. 2 decades later, real-world events provided a disturbing twist to this cartoon narrative. In 2011, an Argentinian fisherman caught a 3-eyed fish in a reservoir located near a nuclear facility in Córdoba, Pictures of the fish circulated on news channels worldwide, and the resemblance to Blinky was uncanny. While scientists stopped short of definitively linking the fish's deformity to radiation, the imagery of such a creature found so close to a nuclear plant was immediately disturbing and deeply symbolic to many. Multi-eyed fish have appeared sporadically over time, with sightings from New York State lakes and a three-eyed catfish from Brooklyn. While such mutations can occur naturally due to genetic anomalies or contamination, their rarity only amplifies their ominous connotation. For the general public, the distinction between satire and prophecy blurred. An environmental destruction cartoon gag morphed into a worrying symbol of ecological consequences. In truth, The Simpsons did more than just entertain. It conjured real fear concerning pollution, nuclear energy, and other less obvious costs of industrial progress. When autocorrect gets it wrong in 1994, The Simpsons episode, Lisa on Ice, aired November 13, featured a small but memorable gag involving the Apple Newton, one of the earliest digital assistants. In the scene, school bully Kearney attempted to write a note on his Newton that read, "Beat up Martin." However, the device's nascent handwriting recognition technology misinterpreted his scrawl, translating it as "Eat up Martha." The joke was quick, yet it perfectly captured a fundamental frustration with technology, its tendency to misunderstand its user, often with comically disastrous results. At the time, the Apple Newton was cutting edge but undeniably flawed. Its handwriting recognition capabilities were infamous for their inaccuracy, and The Simpsons immortalized this weakness in a way that ultimately outlived the device itself. What seemed like a throwaway gag in the mid-1990s turned into a surprisingly prescient commentary on the future of smartphones and predictive text systems. In the 2000s and 2010s, autocorrect became an integral part of texting on iPhones and other Android-powered gadgets. Users quickly came to understand its double-edged sword. Typing was faster, but the deleted in translation meaning could occasionally render words completely ridiculous or embarrassing. Its mockery, particularly the infamous ducking substitution for a common curse word, transformed into one of the most widely popularized frustrations of contemporary communication. Interestingly, Apple engineers later acknowledged that, during the development stage of the iPhone, the phrase, "Eat up Martha," became a cautionary term. It served as a reminder to the development team to prioritize making autocorrect as reliable as possible. Despite continuous improvements, autocorrection remains a ubiquitous, if sometimes vexing, feature of digital existence. The very first joke about a lame widget betrayed a cultural touchstone for millions of daily miscommunications between humans and machines. The Simpsons had effectively turned a jab into a metaphor for the inherent limits of smart technology. When art faced cartoon censorship in 1990, The Simpsons aired Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, December 20th, an episode that cleverly tackled the thorny issue of censorship through parody. The storyline began with Marge, outraged by the extreme violence in the Itchy and Scratchy cartoons, launching a campaign against their perceived negative influence on children. Initially, her efforts were successful, rallying Springfield to demand a toning down of media content. However, the debate quickly escalated beyond just cartoons. The conflict reached its peak when a replica of Michelangelo's David, the iconic Renaissance masterpiece, was scheduled for display in Springfield. Because the statue depicted full nudity, a vocal group of citizens demanded it be covered up, even suggesting that it be given pants. Ironically, Marge, who had spearheaded the initial censorship movement, found herself objecting. She passionately defended David as a great work of art that should not be altered, inadvertently exposing the inherent contradictions and absurdities often found in censorship debates. The episode skillfully demonstrated how easily moral outrage can spiral into absurdity, particularly when it clashes with cultural heritage. 25 years later, reality mirrored the cartoon. In 2016, in St. Petersburg, Russia, a public duplicate of Michelangelo's David became the subject of controversy. Some local residents were offended by its nudity, and a petition began circulating to cover the statue with a fig leaf. The issue even went to a public vote, though officials ultimately decided against any alteration. The parallels to Springfield were uncanny. The same questions about art, morality, and decency resurfaced centuries after Michelangelo created the work and decades after The Simpsons presciently explored the debate. This segment highlighted how satire can anticipate timeless cultural clashes. Whether in Springfield or Russia, the ongoing rift between the protection of sensibilities and the integrity of artistic expression continues. The Simpsons brilliantly mocked the absurd and persistent nature of these discussions. From Bronze to Simpsons Gold, on February 14, 2010, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Boy Meets Curl during the Vancouver Winter Olympics. In it, Homer and Marge unexpectedly became members of the United States curling team. Against all odds, the cartoon couple helped Team USA triumph over Sweden, capturing the gold medal in curling. The premise was intentionally ridiculous. At the time, the U.S. had a negligible reputation as a curling powerhouse. Before this episode aired, America had only managed a single Olympic curling medal, a bronze, in 2006. The idea of the U.S. winning gold, especially against traditionally dominant Sweden, was played purely for laughs. 8 years later, in 2018, the joke astonishingly became reality. John Shuster's team, the U.S. men's curling team at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, shocked the world by defeating Sweden in the finals and taking home the gold medal. Just like in The Simpsons episode, the scenario unfolded with startling accuracy. What made the surprise even greater was the sheer improbability of the win. Team USA had started the tournament very poorly and was widely regarded as an underdog. Their turnaround to secure gold was hailed as one of the biggest upsets of the games. Fans were quick to draw connections between the cartoon and reality, igniting a new round of discussion about The Simpsons' strange talent for predicting the future. The writers later claimed that the storyline was inspired by curling's growing popularity in 2010, rather than any prophetic vision. However, the uncanny convergence of the U.S., the gold medal, and Sweden as the adversary makes this coincidence particularly unforgettable. Debt crisis straight out of Springfield. In January 2012, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Politically Inept with Homer Simpson. In this episode, Homer briefly appeared as a guest on a cable news show. While he ranted on air, a subtle throwaway gag appeared in the news crawl at the bottom of the screen. Europe puts Greece on eBay. At the time, this line was a quick joke referencing the Eurozone's financial troubles and the perception that Greece's struggling economy was a burden on Europe. Viewers likely chuckled and moved on, not realizing that within a few short years, the joke would feel eerily close to reality. By mid-2015, Greece's financial crisis reached a breaking point. After years of heavy borrowing and enduring austerity measures imposed by international lenders, Greece defaulted on a payment to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in June, becoming the first developed nation to do so. The missed payment amounted to $1.6 billion and triggered widespread panic in global markets. Citizens faced closed banks, strict withdrawal limits at ATMs, and soaring unemployment. The country teetered on the edge of leaving the Eurozone altogether, sparking fears of wider economic instability across Europe. While Greece was not literally auctioned online, the metaphor carried significant weight. For many observers, the nation seemed to be stripped down piece by piece, its assets privatized with harsh austerity imposed in return for bailouts. Suddenly, that satirical line from The Simpsons news crawl reflected a horrible reality. Greece felt its sovereignty undermined by international finance. Once a background gag, it morphed into a prophetic-sounding commentary on debt, globalization, and the precariousness of national economies within a tightly woven global financial structure. The Simpsons predicted Gaga's skyfall. In May 2012, The Simpsons closed its 23rd season with the episode Lisa Goes Gaga. The story centered on Lady Gaga visiting Springfield to lift the town's spirits. True to her reputation for flamboyant performances, the show depicted Gaga in outrageous costumes, metallic outfits, and even suspended in midair. One scene, in particular, stood out: Gaga soaring over the audience, held by cables, while dazzling in a silver ensemble and playing a guitar. At one point, her outfit even shot sparks, parodying her reputation for theatrical, boundary-pushing stunts. At the time, this sequence was regarded as a cartoon exaggeration of an already larger-than-life pop star. Fast forward to February 2017. Lady Gaga was the main performer during the halftime show of Super Bowl LI. Millions of people were in for a huge surprise when she appeared before the audience, descending from the roof of the NRG Stadium in Houston, attached to wires and wearing an extravagant silver outfit. Immediately, this performance drew striking comparisons to her animated counterpart in The Simpsons. The uncanny similarities between the cable suspension, the glittering costumes, and the aerial theatrics were widely discussed. The internet was abuzz with side-by-side comparisons, with fans exclaiming how a 5-year-old cartoon seemed to have predicted such a spectacular performance. Even Lady Gaga herself admitted that the similarity gave her shivers, though she acknowledged that aerial entrances are a familiar element in pop performances. Still, The Simpsons captured the event with remarkable accuracy, not just for Gaga's specific performance style, but for the dramatic stage it placed her upon within the show, further adding to the series' reputation for almost eerily predictable foresight. What was meant as a parody of Gaga's eccentricity became an animated prelude to one of her most famous live moments. The Great Grease Heist begins. In August 1998, The Simpsons premiered its 10th season with the episode Lord of the Dance. In it, Homer stumbled upon a new get-rich-quick scheme, selling used fryer grease. After learning that leftover grease could be turned into profit, he roped Bart into a greasy side hustle. The pair siphoned grease from fast food restaurants and even attempted to drain the school cafeteria's supply, only to run into groundskeeper Willie, who, hilariously, turned out to be another grease thief defending his turf. The plot was played for laughs, highlighting Homer's endless appetite for shortcuts to wealth, no matter how absurd. What an outrageous premise at that time! Who, in their right mind, would want to steal cooking oil? Yet, within a matter of a decade, what had once seemed a cartoonish absurdity turned into a very real phenomenon. By the late 2000s, what had previously been discarded dumpster fryer oil was transformed into a valuable commodity due to the booming biofuel industry. This shift prompted restaurants to change their tune from paying to dispose of the oil to hoarding it for profit. The high demand for grease led to an unexpected crime wave: grease theft. Thieves, armed with hoses and oil tanks, would siphon oil from dumpsters under the cover of night. By 2013, estimates indicated that the underground black market for stolen grease was costing U.S. businesses up to $75 million annually. Police departments across the country faced the challenging task of bringing a stop to these grease bandits, a crime wave odd enough to be lifted directly from an animated flick. News articles frequently referenced The Simpsons, noting how Homer's fictional capers seemed to foreshadow an actual underground industry. What started as a ridiculous idea evolved into a reflection of how quickly economic value can shift, turning waste into loot, and satirizing future realities with almost uncanny precision. Cartoon VR real-life obsession. In October 2016, The Simpsons aired Friends and Family, Season 28, Episode 2, where Mr. Burns experimented with virtual reality. Using headsets, he constructed an artificial family that behaved exactly as he wished, quickly becoming obsessed with his digital world. The Simpson family also tried VR, experiencing the strange allure of fabricated realities. Years earlier, in the 2000 episode, Bart to the Future, an adult Bart was depicted as miserable and isolated, hiding behind a VR visor to escape his problems. At the time, these plots leaned heavily into science fiction parody, virtual reality was still considered futuristic, and few imagined it becoming commonplace. Come the 2020s, and such warnings seem alarmingly real. Virtual and augmented reality gadgets are now crucial components in gaming, entertainment, education, and the workplace. The recent launches of Meta, Sony, and Apple into mainstream VR, particularly with the 2023 Vision Pro, have pushed VR into an entirely digitized ecosystem, including the metaverse. This has led to individuals spending incrementally more time in artificial environments. Studies have already begun linking prolonged VR exposure with social isolation, detachment, and even behaviors that verge on addictive, especially among younger users. Indeed, the cautionary tale culturally carved from The Simpsons has manifested in characters preferring to simulate their lives rather than engage in real human interactions. Furthermore, the show foresaw through such media the technological and psychological impact the escapism, loneliness, and search for virtual identity. Marge's rather tender warning, wherever you take them, let them be virtual spaces, nothing takes the real world cost, resonates deeply. The most immediate reality is that what once passed for cartoon satire is now quite real. Society's struggle in this era of rapid digitalization with balancing innovation with the well-being of humankind. Mechanical mayhem in Springfield style. In October 1994, The Simpsons aired the episode Itchy and Scratchy Land, Season 6, Episode 4, a brilliant parody of Disney-style theme parks with a dark sci-fi twist. The family visited a violent, cartoon-themed amusement park where lifelike robot characters entertained guests. At first, everything seemed safe and exciting, with Homer famously joking, "Nothing can go wrong, possibly go wrong. That's the first thing that's ever gone wrong." But soon, the machines malfunctioned dramatically. The robots turned on the visitors, wreaking havoc in a mechanical uprising. The Simpsons ultimately survived only by using camera flashes to disable the rogue androids. At the time, it was a playful nod to Westworld 1973 and a lampooning of our inherent trust in technology-driven fun. Fast forward to the 21st century, and the idea suddenly appears not so comical. Artificial intelligence and robots have made significant leaps, becoming drivers of industrial automation and customer service. In 2023, a chilling episode unfolded when a Moscow chess-playing robot shattered the finger of a little boy during a match, vividly emphasizing how the malfunctions of seemingly safe machines can cause real harm. Meanwhile, robots are now routinely found on mall patrol, assisting at surgeries, and delivering parcels, quietly asserting their presence within our daily lives. The Itchy and Scratchy Land genocide now emerges almost like a satirical herald of our overconfidence in technology. While there is no apocalyptic robotic revolution, questions about autonomous weapons, AI bias, and safety mishaps are no longer relegated solely to science fiction. Homer's blind faith bears an even stronger resemblance to our society's